Actually, hello to no one. This is our first ever recording of our podcast, Borrowed Bones. My name is Sarah,
I'm Cole.
and this is a podcast about fucked up families and familial relationships. Whether you are related by blood or by bond, we can all agree that families bring us up and tear us down. I'm here to dust off those closeted skeletons and take a closer look at what we hide away. All right, for our first episode, I had to start with a classic.
Ooh, oldie but a goodie.
You bet. I'm assuming you know about this. It's the most infamous family feud in American history.
Oh, I bet I know what it is then. Should
You
I
wanna take a
guess?
guess? Yeah.
Hatfields and McCoys?
Ding, ding. I don't know how to use our soundboard yet, so you're just going to hear my lovely sound effects. Organic.
That works.
For our first episode, that's where I had to go. I'm not even sure if we can actually call it a feud, though.
What else would you call it?
A-
Armed conflict?
Yeah, but over years and years, it is a slow burn. Those closest to the feud downplayed it a little bit, and after about 10 years of it all happening, that's when the legend of it all sprang up.
10 years seems like a long family feud in general.
Yeah, there were some pauses, though. We'll get into it.
All right.
So first, the Hatfields and McCoys, they lived on either side of the Tug River, and that's split between Kentucky and West Virginia.
Okay. What era? We talk 1800s, right? But
Civil War, mid to late 1800s.
Okay.
Civil War is actually where we start with this
Okay.
story. And for those of you that might not know, the Civil War ended in 1865.
And West Virginia was created as a new state during the Civil War.
Correct, yeah.
One of two. What's the other state that was created? Nevada.
What?
Yeah.
Nevada was created from the Civil War?
It became a state during the Civil War.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yes, that's my history degree at work. All right, moving on.
Anyway.
All right, so the McCoys lived on the Kentucky side of the river,
Okay.
and the Hatfields lived on the West Virginia side of the river.
Alrighty.
They were very close, though, just a river. That's all that was separating them. So,
Neighbors, essentially, of that era.
yes,
Okay.
especially living in Appalachia. They
Yeah.
weren't really, they were not slave owners themselves. The Appalachian area of America didn't really get hit the same way, didn't really have the same effect during the Civil War the way that other places did, especially areas that were for the slave economics, for lack of a better term.
Because Kentucky was a slave state, but stayed loyal to the Union and never seceded. And West Virginia also was created by the Union, separating it from Virginia, which obviously was a Confederate state.
Yes. So we're seeing how already things are probably pretty tense all over.
Do we know what either family's sympathies lied with?
Yes.
Union or Confederate?
It's a mix.
Oh.
All right, let me get into it. How did it start? Who started it? And who's to blame? Of course.
Need two sides to have a feud.
And like we were just speaking about, this all starts during the Civil War. In 1865, that was like the end of the Civil War, Harmon McCoy. He came home due to an injury. Now, Harmon McCoy, he fought for the Union.
Ooh.
He was the only one, I believe. I did not see anyone else on either side of the families that fought for the Union.
Okay. So he was the blue sheep instead of the black sheep.
Yeah, I suppose so. That would make sense. When Harmon came home, Anderson Ants Hatfield, who went by Devil Ants Hatfield, he is the patriarch of the Hatfield family.
How'd he get a name like Devil?
We'll get into that.
Ooh.
It's a part of his story.
Scintillating.
He fought for the Confederate States of America in the Civil War, so for the South.
Oh.
And he believed that Harmon was responsible, or he was at least with the group of people that killed a friend of Devil Ance's during war, though.
Oh. That's what war
times.
is.
Yeah, all is fair.
Well, maybe you shouldn't have seceded. Maybe you shouldn't have been a traitor. Maybe a controversial hot take, especially today, but the Confederates were the bad guys in the Civil War. We can pretty much agree with that, right?
I'll agree.
Okay.
I think we all should be able to
We
agree
should
that
be, but
slavery's
let's
bad.
Yeah, let's move on.
But anyway, at the time, like I said, Appalachia in general, a lot of those people really did think that they were fighting someone else's war. They weren't slave owners.
And you said the Hatfields nor the McCoys were themselves slave-owning families, as far as we know. Okay.
Yeah. Not that I know anyway. I did not see any of that. Devilance, upon learning that Harmon was home, he put out a warning, and that resulted in Harmon going into hiding. He was hiding in a cave when he was found, and the story goes that Devilance's uncle, James, who goes by Jim Vance, was the one who shot and killed Harmon.
Ah, Jim Vance.
Jim Vance.
Jim Vance, put him in the fridge. Vance refrigeration.
That's an Office reference for anyone who knows that. Vance refrigeration. All right, so this...
Put the first McCoy on ice.
They should put that in a slogan.
Yeah.
And then this, of course, it did create some tension, but years
Murder
would go
does
by.
that.
Yeah, murder typically creates a little bit
Ruffle
of tension
some
between
feathers.
families.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, 1865, Harmon McCoy is killed by Jim Vance, who is
Allegedly.
Devilance's uncle, and people are pretty sure that Devilance knew or set him to it.
Okay.
Now, before we go any further, I want to talk about the families and get an idea of how they're set up.
Yeah, give me the structures of these families. You gave me Devilance is the patriarch of the Hatfields. So
Correct.
Who's his analogy or his analogous partner on the McCoy side of this? Who's the head of that family?
So the McCoy patriarch is Randolph, and this is where I'm going to give you all the nicknames for everyone, too.
Oy.
We have Randolph, who goes by Randall, which is what I'll be using.
Okay.
And Ol Rannell.
Ol Rannell?
R-A-N-L.
Oh. Interesting.
It's fine.
Okay.
So I call him Randall. And
Randy McCoy.
Let's call him Randy.
Randy.
I'm going to stick with Randall. You do whatever you want.
I'm going to call him Randy.
Keep adding nicknames. That's fine.
Yeah.
Why not? Randall was married to Sarah, but she went by Sally.
Why?
I'm not sure.
I
don't
love when
go by
nicknames
Sally.
are just other names with the same amount of syllables. What is the point of that?
Maybe you should call me Sally.
Yeah.
I don't like it. No. All right. So Sarah and Randall, Sally, I don't know. It's going to interchange because I like my name better than Sally, but she did go by Sally, in all fairness. Randall and Sally are first cousins.
As was the norm of the time.
Mm-hmm. That kind of comes back, but we'll see a little bit.
It comes back like a recessive trait.
Yes. And they had 16 children together. I'm going to rattle them off quickly here in order of
and
oldest
all
to
of
youngest.
those kids were their own cousin.
Yes.
Once removed, is that how that works?
I don't know the removal process
I don't
of
know,
cousins.
but
I don't think any removing is happening in this family. I think
they're only adding.
Yeah, it's like I looked at the family tree and it circled.
Like
and
a bush?
Yeah, I don't think a family tree should look like a bush. But anyway, that was back in the day. They were isolated. I'm not judging. It is what it is. So they had 16 children.
Life finds a way.
The Fly?
Yes, that's from Jeff Goldblum in The Fly.
I always want to call it Fly Man.
Fly Park.
The oldest of the McCoy children was Josephine, and then we have James, and then Floyd, Tolbert, Lilburn, Samuel, and then they had number 7, which was just daughter, because she didn't make it past infancy.
Oh, yeah, you don't name them for a while. Do you think Tolbert went by Tolbert to sound...
Doubt it. And then they have Alifair, and then Rosanna, Calvin, Farmer with a PH.
Oh.
Fancy. Randolph Jr., William, Trinvilla.
Wait a minute, he named kid like 13 Junior?
Close, kid 12.
Oh, wow, I wasn't even keeping track, but like, just ran out of names?
Yep.
Took him that's weird to take that long to get a junior. Usually it's the first one, right?
Listen, he wasn't narcissistic. He thought, we're running out of names. I'll finally
and then he
put
had
mine
more.
in. No birth control back then, man. And then number 15 is Adelaide. Number 16 is Fanny. The names that you all need to bear in mind are Tolbert or
Tolbert.
Farmer, Randolph Jr., Rosanna, Alifair, and Calvin.
Is Alifair a male
Girl.
or female? Okay.
And then going to the Hatfield side, like I said,
Devilance on
we
top.
have Devilance, Anderson Devil Ants Hatfield, and he married Levice.
It's a unique name.
Yeah, I like that.
You've ever heard that name before?
I've never heard it, yeah. And they got married just before the Civil War, and together they had 13 children.
Okay.
Their oldest was Johnson, who went by Johnsy. William Anderson, who went by Cap, Robert Lee, classic, Nancy, Elliot, Mary, Elizabeth, Elias, Detroit.
Detroit?
Yeah.
I wonder if he went by Detroit. So
He
you
did
had two
not.
French pronunciations.
He went by Troy.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't know how they got that name, but that's pretty cool because represent Michigan. What up? And then Joseph Rosada Lee, Emmanuel Willis, and then Tennyson, who went by Tennis.
Okay.
I like these names. Anyway, the names that you need to pay attention to in that one are John Z, Cap, and that's really it. Yeah, just those two. And then Jim Vance, of course, and Devil Anse and all that. Other names and other players will come as well.
Jim Vance is Devil Anse's uncle.
So he's a great uncle to the kids.
Oh, he's got a different last name.
He's married in.
Obviously. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
all right.
He married into the Hatfield family.
Okay. So we got 13 kids on one side, on the Hatfield side, and 16 on the McCoys.
Yes.
All right.
So we're starting strong. Got a small little militias,
like
basically.
To bang a lot.
What else is there to do in them hills?
Yeah. Churn
you
butter.
Cut timber, churn butter, and F your cousin. I don't know. All right. So just to recap, we have Harmon McCoy, who was murdered by Jim Vance due to the Civil War issues in 1865. And then nothing for a while. 13 years to be exact.
Oh.
Nothing.
I thought it was like once it started, it just kept going and
this is where one of those theories are where did it start there or did it start here? People kind of debate. Did it start with the murder of Harmon McCoy or did it start with what I'm about to talk about 13 years later?
Is there a porcine figure involved?
Yep.
Wink.
A couple. Or none. We'll see.
Oh.
Exactly. So 13 years later, 1878 is where we're at right now.
What happened in that year?
There's a hog trial.
Ah.
Now, there's quite a few versions of this hog trial, and I'm going to tell you the most widely known one, and then I'm going to break it down.
This is the lay, like, as a more or less outsider to this, who doesn't know a whole lot about it, this is the thing that I would say the average person probably, if you only know anything about the feud, the first thing you hear is, oh, it started over a pig, right?
Yes.
That's the myth of the folklore that everyone's told. I guess we'll get into how accurate that is or what the kernel of that rumor is.
This took a lot of my research, a lot of my time.
Okay.
I was very surprised to find how many different iterations there are of this trial.
Okay, so there is a court case.
Maybe.
All right.
So in 1878, Randall McCoy, remember the patriarch, he accused Floyd Hatfield. He's a cousin to the Hatfields. He doesn't really matter, but this is what's happening.
One of the children. He's just a relative because everyone's related in these general areas.
Everyone's related to everyone. There's intermarrying. There's all that happening.
Yeah.
Floyd Hatfield is cousin of the Hatfields, and Randall McCoy accused Floyd of stealing his hog.
Pig rustling.
Not for pig rustling. They couldn't waste it that way.
Well, it's rustling. You rustle livestock. You're stealing a pig. It's pig,
I
rustling.
thought you meant wrestle.
No,
like
rustling.
Getting in there and mud wrestling.
No. You could rustle a pig to later wrestle it. You got to say wrestle. Normally I would say wrestle, but if you're also having rustle in the same sentence as a verb to steal livestock,
wrestle.
Yeah, you got to differentiate. Otherwise they sound too similar.
Case in point. Exactly.
So we accuse him of being a pig rustler.
Yes, not a wrestler, but who knows? Just one pig is this story right here.
Okay.
Hogs at the time were thought to be like a big deal. They helped families make it through the winter, and there were quite a few hog trials in the court documents around that time from that area.
I mean, it's like stealing someone's livelihood for the winter. A good pig that you fatten up for a couple of years, and the goal to feed your family for a few seasons, smoked meat and whatnot, and it's suddenly gone. What are you going to do?
Exactly. That feeds your family for at least a few days, if not more. I'm not really sure. I mean, they get really big. But strangely, there were not any court documents of this hog trial.
Oh.
Now, remember, they do live in a more remote area, so a lot of things were just handled officially but unofficially.
Court records back then, I know from elsewhere in the country, were not the best.
Yeah, you had to look for things for your job, haven't you?
Yeah, and even if court records were taken back in 1878, They could be lost a lot. I mean, obviously, it's all physical paper at the time.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah. Fires
So-
happen. Things get moved. Yeah.
So all of this is by word of mouth.
Okay.
So if I'm wrong,
So-
I'm not wrong.
So it's an oral tradition.
Yes, most of the Hatfield and McCoy stuff
Okay.
is. Now, the story goes that hundreds of people came from all around to see this trial and be a part of the action. The local judge was a member of the Hatfield family.
Okay.
He was the justice of the peace. I don't know if that's judge and justice of the peace. That's
Justice
the
of the
same
peace
thing.
is-
They seem synonymous or...
Justice of the peace, I think, is a little bit more nebulous of a term back then. I mean, a judge presided over trials in district and circuit courts. Justice of the peace could deputize people, could issue arrest warrants, but they were typically used in small rural areas. But
acting as the
yeah,
judge, though.
kind
Okay.
of, yeah. I could see one person could do both roles.
If necessary,
Yeah.
if needed.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so that's what's happening here. We have the justice of the peace / judge, that is a Hatfield, and the trial had 6 Hatfields on one side of the jury and 6 McCoys on the other side of the jury.
Okay.
Yep.
So this wasn't randomly selected or was just everyone in the community just, you are either one or the other.
I mean, that's the case, but it wasn't randomly selected.
Okay.
Per the story.
Okay.
They wanted to make it fair. They wanted to make it fair in order to
You think
have
fair would
people
be,
from both sides of the family in there. Yeah.
I think more fair would be get 12 people who aren't part of either.
It might have been too hard.
Have-
I'm not sure.
I can't find 12 people who don't have
Yeah.
an opinion on this.
I'm really not sure, but that's how the story goes that the jury
All right.
was set up. So now we have names Selkirk McCoy and Bill Staten.
Okay.
Both of these men played a vital role in the trial. Selkirk was a juror on the McCoy side,
Okay.
and he was voting in favor for the Hatfields. He ended up
Oh.
dividing the families even further.
He defected.
Yeah, Selkirk lived on the West Virginia side with the Hatfields,
Oh.
and he worked for Devilance in his timber business.
So he went more for
His livelihood?
geography and livelihood than blood.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, like I said,
Maybe he's a bit
family
of a-
is blood or by bond.
Maybe he's a bit of a free thinker. He's
Mhm.
just
Wild. And then we have Bill Staten, who gave a key testimony that ended up swaying the votes in favor of the Hatfields as well. Now, Bill Staten is family to both sides
okay.
through marriage. He was born into the McCoy family, but married a Hatfield. I don't know why his last name is Staten.
All right.
If it's McCoy, I'm not sure.
Okay. So he's a witness at this possible trial,
Yes.
and he testifies.
He says that he saw Floyd Hatfield make the notch on the hog's ear.
Oh, William, what's this? Notch on the hog's ear. What's going on here? That's the telltale kind of brand,
Yeah.
more or less. Okay.
Yep. So instead of branding the pig or the livestock, they would notch the ears.
Okay.
And there are certain types of notches
Yeah,
that
each
they
farmer
would
would have
do.
a distinct
and,
way to
Yeah.
kind of, yeah.
And so Bill Staten was saying, I saw Floyd Hatfield do the notches. Once it was understood or thought that Staten had seen Floyd Hatfield do the notches on the hog, the matter was settled and it favored the Hatfields.
Okay.
McCoys left the courtroom disgruntled and angry.
Okay.
Now
So
that's the
they're-
story that everyone knows.
Yeah.
The McCoys lost, they're mad, and the
They're out a
feud goes
pig.
on. Yep.
Okay. So the 13-ish years in between an unsolved, as far as a officially unsolved murder and
Yeah.
the possible hog theft, nothing really happened as far as we know in this feud.
With the murder, no.
Yeah. Okay. So the McCoys get more riled up over a hog theft than over a murder of one of their own.
According to the story.
Okay.
Yes.
So, like, you killed my brother, I'll let that slide for a decade, but you stole my pig, and we're going to have words.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, remember,
Maybe he didn't like his brother. I mean, his brother went to the north, fought for the north, so maybe he already was
Maybe-
like,
yeah,
maybe he was on Ance's side in that sense.
I
Not
don't
like
know.
endorsing it, not shedding too many tears over it either.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. Like you said, nothing really came of it. It was at the time in our country when people were coming back from the Civil War and they weren't really getting along. Like, you don't just get along right away.
Yeah.
You know, you have these differences, these moral issues, and you still are kind of fighting. I mean, Devil
It
Lance
was
himself.
a war of brother against brother.
Yeah. Devil Lance himself is said to have deserted.
He's a
His-
Double traitor.
but he also is more of a capitalist than anything. He's like, I have shit to do.
Let's get to that for a second. What do these two families do for their livelihoods? Are they just farmers? You mentioned some lumber that the Hatfields had, so...
The Hatfields are in the timber industry,
Okay.
which is perfect for the area.
Yeah.
And they do all the timber, and they end up being pretty successful in that sense. They do well. The Hatfields actually came from the Mayflower.
Oh, okay.
Like,
So
they're straight up
old...
American. Yeah.
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 All right.
Old school American. The McCoys just struggled along. They farmed. They had some timber. They weren't really overly successful in
So the
anything,
Hatfields
though.
are the more successful, more affluent, if you're going to use such a term.
Yes.
They're the more well-to-do of the two families.
Yes.
No question. Okay.
Yep. And the timber business does come back into play, so I'm glad you asked.
Okay.
So the general squabbling and fighting back to the hog trial after everything was settled kind of happened. And then 2 years go by, and there's still just little squabbles, little arguments, little skirmishes, nothing too serious, though, but things are just boiling a little bit.
So that brings us to 1880?
Yes.
Okay.
So there are two McCoys. They are nephews of Randall McCoy. They are
Okay.
not his kids. They're Sam and Paris McCoy.
Paris?
Yeah. Don't these people have
And
fun
this is a
names?
boy.
Yeah.
Nice. All right.
I like it. How progressive.
Yeah.
Not Paris like from Gilmore Girls. She's great, though. They could have used her, I think.
Who?
Paris from the Gilmore Girls.
Oh.
You've heard her when I've had them on.
Okay.
Anyway, Sam and Paris McCoy, they saw Bill Staten in the woods, and they shot and killed him.
Just... Okay. Well.
2 years later. That's the story that they gave. They said, well, self-defense.
Ah, well, yeah.
But the only 3 people were there, so we're not sure.
Yeah.
Sam ended up fleeing for about 2 years, and Paris was apprehended soon after the killing. Then once Sam was captured or found or discovered, I don't know how he came back.
Back in custody somehow.
Yeah, back in custody. They were both tried and found not guilty on the grounds of self-defense.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you as a defendant assert that, it's kind of, to this day, it's on the prosecution to prove you didn't defend yourself. And if there's no witness to say, you know, that they stalked him and deliberately shot him down. And do we have any info on this Staten's reputation? Was he prone to violence?
Yeah.
Would it be believable that he would assault them or
Yes.
put them in a position that they would have to defend themselves?
It's believable that all 3 of these gentlemen would have murdered or started or done. So it was
they're
one of those things
ne'er-do-wells.
where it's like, we don't want to feed into the feud. We just want to subdue it.
Okay.
So charging them might have been a little too risky.
This seems to make that the body count now is equal, too. The Hatfields killed a McCoy in 1865. Now the McCoys have killed one of theirs.
Yeah.
So maybe tit for tat, they can let sleeping dogs or pigs lie.
Yeah, true.
But obviously that doesn't happen. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking about this.
Exactly. The 2 years after the hog trial, the killing of Bill Staten, all of that is what most people will say started the feud. Really lit a fire under it.
That's when things start happening much more rapidly.
I would like to break down the hog trial, though, before we get further into the story, just so we can see how everything got so drummed up.
Yeah.
And how all of this, I don't know, telephone game is where we're at today.
Spill the bacon.
Yeah. All right. So I did quite a bit of digging. I was looking for those primary sources, those firsthand accounts.
Rooting around like a hog for a truffle.
I guess so.
I'll stop.
It's okay. I'm just envisioning myself as a pig.
Yeah.
Looking for books in the dirt. I don't know. That's what.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was looking for some primary resources or sources, and I was trying to put my history degree to some use since I have it and I'm paying for it. Fuck it, let's use it. So in my search for these, I discovered that the hog trial just wasn't really that sensational, wasn't really the biggest deal. And what happened was a few years later, we're going to fast forward just a little bit before we go back, in 1888, so 10 years after the hog trial, that's when we have our first reporter on the scene.
Okay.
To talk about it.
So by then...
It's been 10 years.
So the feud's gotten some... I'm assuming this
More
reporter
has happened.
from out of the area. From
Yes.
a big New York, Chicago, somewhere like that, right? So it's
I
already
think just
got...
Kentucky, but a
Oh,
bigger
okay.
city.
But
Yeah.
out of the area.
Out of the area.
The reputation of this feud has spread
Yes.
in the region.
They're just quick little snippets to see how this sort of story turns into a legend.
Mm-hmm.
The first reporter on the scene, again, 10 years later in 1888, his name is John Spears. He came to the area and he was asking, they called it the private war. He was asking about the private war that seems to have taken place over the course of the last 10
polite
years.
than blood feud.
Yeah, I know. We've really just drummed it up, like I said, quite a bit. It's very, the private little war. Oh.
The mutually assured destruction that was going on.
Yeah. John Spears, he spoke with Randall McCoy, the patriarch, who was still around at the time.
Yeah, old Randy.
Yeah, old Randy. And he also spoke with Perry Klein. That's a name that will come back.
Perry Klein.
He's related to the McCoys. He's a lawyer.
Oh, he's got a lawyerly name.
Yeah, he does.
Esquire.
And so Spears spoke to only members of the McCoy family and only McCoy supporters.
Now, is that because... did he try to reach out to the Hatfields and they weren't interested, or do we not know?
We don't know, and it doesn't seem like he really leaned one way or the other.
Okay.
I don't know if it's just lazy reporting, because back then people really did just get the bare minimum and run.
Yeah.
So I really don't think he meant to have an angle or anything on it. I think he just went down, checked it out, talked to some people, thought it was enough. There are some people that come into play that I think have angles, though.
Okay.
So John Spears only spoke to McCoy family members. And of course, that was a pretty one-sided story. But still, he spoke directly to the people that were involved. And he has, according to Spears, Randall McCoy is quoted as saying, it started with, quote, two long-nosed, razor-backed elm peeler hogs.
2.
Not 1, 2. And he even describes the hogs, so he seems to remember them pretty well. And then continuing to say that Floyd Hatfield is the one that stole his hogs.
Okay.
So Randall is saying that this happened. So that's why I believe it happened.
He's not mentioning the murder of his brother.
He's not.
A decade beforehand.
No.
So even by his account, the thing he's most pissed off about is not his brother's murder.
He didn't mention it.
His pigs.
Yeah.
His razorbacks being stolen.
Yep.
Okay.
And they said that the justice of the peace was Matt Hatfield at the time, who presided over the case.
Okay. Conflict of interest inherently, but there probably wasn't a lot of other judges
there
for him
choices.
to...
There just weren't any other choices, in all honesty.
Can't really recuse yourself back then.
Now, the name of which Hatfield presided over the hog trial changes.
Oh.
Yeah, because the Hatfields end up having, Ance Hatfield ends up having more of a status. His status grows more as time goes on.
Okay.
And so I think they put certain Hatfield names in where others were to bolster up certain aspects of the feud that might have looked favorably on a Hatfield. And they may have taken some names out of areas that don't look so favorably on Hatfields.
They messed with the records.
Yeah, they messed with the records. It's not really the biggest deal, but this adds to why there's so many different iterations of this and different stories. So Matt Hatfield, I believe, was the one who actually presided over the case. And Randall and Randall's family, they told Spears that the two hogs were in the courtroom at the time of the trial.
Wait a minute, so these pigs were still alive? They weren't butchered?
Yeah, according to Randall and his family, 10 years later.
Okay.
But the story we all hear, there aren't pigs in the courtroom.
Yeah.
And there's not 2, there's 1.
Yeah.
And Randall McCoy and family 10 years later are saying 2 pigs, 2 hogs.
So the earliest confirmed primary source that we have is actually 10 years after the alleged trial itself.
Yes.
And from the pig owner's pig owner's mouth. Okay. All right. I'm just...
Interesting, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Now, Floyd had witnesses stating that they were Floyd's hogs. Randall remembers this, and he says so. We know who those witnesses were. We just talked about them.
Mm-hmm.
And Randall did not have any witnesses, so he feels that's why he ultimately lost and had to pay the court fees.
Okay.
Now, Randall did mention the killing of Bill Staten, that one witness, and how Staten testified against them.
Yeah, Staten's the one who said that the hog was not McCoy's.
Exactly.
They had the distinct ear notch.
Yes. And that's all that he really said about it. He was
Okay.
kind of just like, yep, that's the thing that happened. And that was really it. Now, a few weeks or about a few months later, after Spears was there, another reporter came onto the scene. Theron C. Crawford, also known as T.C. Crawford.
I'd go by Theron. That was my name.
Yeah, I like that. But
Yeah.
T.C. Crawford sounds like official. Like, I feel like I see someone with a little report, like a note and a pen. And yeah.
A quill.
Now, he spoke to both sides of the feud, both families. And Crawford, he got the story of how Harmon McCoy was killed in 1865.
Oh, what was he told? By whom?
I'm not sure, quite honestly. I don't know who told him. I know that he writes about it, though.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that's how I know he knows about it. Spears just never wrote on that, and he just probably didn't really know. T.C. Crawford just wrote that the murder did happen. I don't think he named anyone in it. He just said Hatfields might have been the reason for, because all of that was still alleged at the time. Mm-hmm. You're not fully accusing anyone of anything. I am today. I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Jim Vance killed Harmon McCoy. I said it. But the strange thing, though, is that T.C. Crawford talks about Harmon McCoy, but doesn't mention the hog trial.
Oh.
See? It's
so we
weird.
Have two different newspaper accounts.
Yeah, and they spoke to primary sources.
Yeah, and the sources give two different origins of the feud, so to speak. Okay.
Yeah.
And omit crucial elements. Yeah. So
it's very strange. So then there's a few other writers that come in, but those were the two reporters that spoke directly to the primary sources. And then when other, I'm going to say writers, not reporters, come into play, they don't even visit the area. One of them starts writing, I think, a year later or so, and adds all these other things, adds dialogue, adds storyline, and it's just not the same. And then someone else comes in and adds more to that, and then someone else comes in 50 years later, adds more to that, and then it becomes a big thing.
Become their own organisms.
I just wanted everyone to know what was happening from the actual primary sources. They didn't really say much. Now we know all the ins and outs of the hog trial, or maybe not, but we know how the story got bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
We do know a hog trial happened. It had to have.
There had to be something
happened there.
Some acorn for that oak to grow out of.
Yeah. So the next thing that ends up happening after the hog trial, just in 1880 at this point, because the hog trial was 78, 2 years later, Bill Staton was murdered.
Staton's killed.
And then
a couple of years, the two killers are acquitted.
Oh, yeah, the two killers are acquitted.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
And now we're going to go ahead and talk about this lovely forbidden romance.
Oh.
Can't have a family feud without a little Romeo and Juliet.
At least they're breaking out of their respective families. I'm assuming.
Trying, yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know if anyone out there has seen this miniseries about the Hatfields and McCoys with, who's in it again?
Kevin Costner and Bill Paxton, R.I.P.
Oh. And then that was the History Channel that did that, right?
I believe so. Yeah. 2012, I think it came out.
It was a while ago.
Yeah.
But I loved it. We recently rewatched it to see everything. And this miniseries drums up this forbidden romance so much.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. I love it, but it's unfortunately just not the case.
So forbidden romance.
Yes. By all actual accounts, the whirlwind romance was not all it was cracked up to be.
Who are the parties?
It is John C. Hatfield.
John C.
The oldest of the Hatfield children.
Okay.
And it is Rosanna McCoy, one of the McCoy girls.
Oh.
Yes. Now we're in the direct line here.
So the boys from the well-to-do family, and the girls from the less well-to-do.
Yes.
Okay. So I make sure I understand the power dynamics here.
Yeah. And for this one, I had to search again for primary sources because of that miniseries. I was getting a lot of facts from that, and I was trying to kind of wade my way around that. Again, history degree coming to good use. I did find a blog, and I think this blog is reputable. I'll put all of my sources in the show notes and everything, but she's called Appalachian Lady.
Okay.
And she is a direct descendant of Devil Anse Hatfield.
All right.
So I think it has some legs. It's worth listening to,
Yeah.
Reading about. And she said in her blog that she was raised listening to stories from her elders.
That tracks.
Yeah. So according to the Appalachian Lady, and with some other accounts I found, Johnson. His name was Johnson. John C., though, is what he goes by. John C., he was viewed as a lover, not a fighter. And at this time, that was a polite way of saying that he was a fuckboy.
He's a Don Juan, a Casanova, a Lothario.
I guess so, yeah.
A Coxman.
You could have your pick of it. Jesus. Anyway, he enjoyed chasing the ladies.
Yeah.
He often had a few and was juggling a few at once, typically.
Ladies' man.
Yeah, Rosanna, on the other hand, she was a good girl, she was very sheltered, and she just didn't really know the way of the world, especially when it came to matters of love. Yikes.
Find out soon.
So the story goes that it was Election Day, 1880. Now again, Bill Staten's murder was in 1880.
Okay.
So this is shortly after, maybe just a few months, I believe, after Bill Staten's death. So tensions are kind of there.
Mm-hmm.
So Election Day, the polls were on the Kentucky side, and Election Day was a big deal. Everyone became a part of it. They were very fun for everyone, a big social gathering back then. They had shooting competitions, best recipe contests.
It's a little festival or like county fair.
Yeah, people are drinking, there's trading moonshine.
Yeah, beer kegs.
There's a lot going on.
Right.
Yeah, it's a festival.
Yeah.
And this is where John C. and Rosanna first locked eyes.
In the beer tent.
Can you imagine a beer tent back then?
Ugh.
They probably look like they do today, actually.
Yeah, it's a tent.
Probably very similar.
It's a tent with beer.
They saw each other, and it was love at first sight. For her, anyway.
Yeah.
They went into the woods away from the Election Day festivities. They kind of broke away, and as young lovers do...
and filibustered?
They lost track of time. They did not filibuster. They lost track of time. And they didn't come back from the woods until everything was the polling was closed. Everyone was gone.
How far away did they go? I feel like, what?
They're just in the woods. They're in the woods doing what lovers do, I guess. And I don't know. I don't know how good Rosanna was, but she seemed to know what she was doing. So anyway, Rosanna was supposed to go back home with her brothers.
Okay.
Obviously, that did not happen. Her brothers ended up returning home without her. And Randall McCoy...
Randy.
Oh, Randy. He was pissed. He said, go back and get her. What the hell?
Yeah.
Why don't you have your sister?
Just left her out in the fucking woods?
Yeah, so the brothers...
The fucking woods.
That's what she calls them. Oh, Lord. So the brothers go back and they still can't find her. They're gone. So what happened was John C. ended up taking Rosanna back to his house.
Okay.
And she stayed the night in his sister's bedroom. Which is actually pretty nice.
Would Devil Ants think of that? Was he in
They
the know?
allowed it.
Okay.
Yeah, they allowed it. They kind of understood what happened there. And they're not going to leave this girl out in the woods.
Yeah.
Rosanna's in West Virginia now at the Hatfield house. And the McCoys don't know where she is. When Randall discovered where she had been all night, he was furious.
Mm-hmm.
Rosanna and John Z then said that they wanted to get married.
After one night?
This is how the story goes, man.
All right.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, that happened back then a lot.
Yeah, you know, I saw you, let's get married, whatever. Yeah.
We're all going to die by
According
40
to the
anyway.
Appalachian Ladies blog, she said that John C. never intended to marry Rosanna, but I think it was talked about.
Mm-hmm.
I do.
You probably let her think you would.
I think so. I think that's what was happening.
Yeah.
Randall,
he's older and
yes.
obviously
yes.
more well-to-do.
Yeah. He can get away with it.
Yeah, he's got more world knowledge.
Randall McCoy, of course, did not allow it. He said, absolutely no fucking way.
Yeah.
What the hell are you thinking? In fact, I disown you for all of this. You're done. You're out. Goodbye, bitch.
He disowned her?
Yep. Goodbye.
Huh.
Done. I don't think they ever saw each other again.
He's got, 13 or 6? I forgot which one has the most. But
16.
Either way.
Yeah. They could lose one.
You can lose a few
That's
here
fine.
and there.
That's why he had so many back
then. Yeah, you got
then.
backups.
Well, he said, I'm done with her. I don't want her around anymore. Whatever. Rosanna was allowed to stay at the Hatfield's place.
Oh.
They took her in, but they also forbid the marriage. The thought is that Devil Anse Hatfield didn't want to keep ruffling the feathers. He kind of wanted the feud to stop.
Yeah.
He was like, can we just be done with this? And he knew that if he went against Randall McCoy, that it would just cause more issues. So he thought that maybe this would help.
If his family is better off, and he's got a career in the timber industry, I could see him just wanting this to be like, what does he have to gain out of the feud? If he wins the feud with the McCoys, what does he get?
Nothing really.
Exactly. So it seems like it's more the McCoys keeping it going.
Yeah. At this point, it seems like it. Yeah. No one would allow this marriage. No one would let it happen, and Rosanna's brothers were understandably angry with Johnsy. They did that classic brotherly thing of like, you're taking advantage of our sister. What are you doing? Because they know that Rosanna doesn't know what the fuck is going on.
Maybe if they hadn't abandoned her and left him the only one to take care of her for the night.
Was no one looking for them for hours? No one was like, hey, where's my brother? Where's my sister? What? So strange. Anyway, whatever. Rosanna's brothers wanted to find Johnsy and hurt him. They just wanted to go after. So they were looking, and eventually the boys did find Johnsy and Rosanna together.
Oh.
They kidnapped Johnsy. I feel like it, but no.
In states of undress?
I want to believe that, just because it's more fun, but I can't confirm. Yeah. But nothing about the McCoys or Hatfields can be confirmed, so let's just add our own flair to it like everyone else does. They was doing it. Well, when they were found, the McCoy brothers kidnapped Johnsy. Oh. They imprisoned him in a hunting cabin on the Kentucky side of the Tug River.
Okay.
The McCoys were able to get Johnsy arrested on some old bootlegging charges. Because he did do moonshine, and that was not allowed at the time.
It's funny, the thing that's not allowed is the thing I most associate with that area.
I know. It's like you just know moonshine comes from there, and it's amazing. Everyone should have some. Because of this, Rosanna, in a very Romeo Juliet style, she rode through the night into the woods to warn Devil Anse of what has happened to his son. And Devil Anse, along with other Hatfields, surrounded the McCoy brothers, and they were able to retrieve John.
Okay.
Without incident. No one's hurt, no one's killed, but this just adds a little fervor to it.
Give me my boy back. Okay, here you go. All right.
Here comes the inevitable announcement from Rosanna.
God. She's got a seed in her, doesn't she?
She's pregger. She's got the devil's grandson in her, granddaughter, in her belly. Okay. Yikes. The Hatfields still said no to their marriage. So if you have a girl that has no home, has no husband, and she's pregnant, what do you do with her if she can't get married?
Send her to a nunnery?
Close. Send her to her aunt's.
Oh, yeah.
Hours away. So they sent her to her aunt's house to live with, and Johnsy actually ended up marrying Rosanna's cousin, Nancy.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right. Well.
Nancy was only 15 at the time.
So he was set on, like, marrying a McCoy woman. He really wanted that.
I don't really know why. There's not a reason as to why Johnsy and Nancy got married if Nancy wanted to, because the marriage was short. I don't understand what happened there. She never had his kid. I don't know, actually. I didn't look that far, but I don't think so. Very strange.
And the McCoys were okay with her marrying him.
Nancy is not a sister to Rosanna. She's a cousin.
Oh, isn't she? Is she the daughter of the guy of old Randy's brother that was killed?
Harmon McCoy?
Yeah, Harmon. Is she the daughter of Harmon? Okay.
Yes, she is.
Okay.
So the miniseries did get that correct.
All right.
Yes. In the miniseries, we're going to reference quite a bit, I guess.
So,
it was correct that Nancy is Harmon's daughter.
Okay.
Yes.
So she marries into the family that killed her dad.
Yeah. Oh, don't worry. Okay. She comes back around. I love her story. So back to Rosanna. She ended up giving birth to a little girl. Her name was Sarah Elizabeth. Sarah with an H. Well, the proper way. The noble way. Her baby, unfortunately, never made it through infancy. And Rosanna herself did not have the greatest end. She is said to have died of a broken heart, and she passed away before she turned 30. And I don't believe she ever saw her family or anyone again.
Wow.
Yeah. There's the end of that line.
Love will always get you.
It will. Now,
just voted and gone home that day at the polling station.
If you just vote and go, don't start shit. Don't be shit.
Don't start banging people in line in the polling station.
That's exactly what happened. You heard it. In the line of the polling station. Fucking. So after all of this, the feud really starts to escalate, but it's still over the course of a few years. So things are drummed up. Things are still happening. Now we're fast forwarding 2 more years to 1882.
Okay.
Election day again. Gotta love it. So again, we're doing a big social gathering, a big to-do.
Big hootenanny.
Yes. Now, this one, people were drinking. They were drinking their moonshine. They were getting a little sloppy. They really loved it. Now, one person who was drinking quite a bit was Ellison Hatfield, who is a brother of Devil Anse.
Okay.
So he was drinking quite a bit, getting a little mouthy.
Ellison.
Some of the McCoy boys were also getting a little mouthy back. Now, the McCoy boys meaning Randall's sons.
Okay. Old Randy's baby boys.
Old Randy's baby boys. 3 of Randall's sons, Tolbert, Farmer, and Randolph Jr.
Tolbert, Farmer, and Randy Jr.
Yeah.
Randy too.
Randy too. They all got into a fight with Ellison.
Okay.
All 4 guys are fighting now, and the boys ended up stabbing Ellison 26 times.
Jesus.
Yeah, this is quite the escalation.
3-on-1, and they still had to stab him over 24 times?
I can only imagine they all had a knife. They all had a little knife or something and were just jabbing them.
26 times. Damn.
Yeah, it's crazy.
No one broke this fight up, obviously.
No, I don't know how it happened, but 26 times. The authorities did apprehend the boys, but the Hatfield clan, they said, nope, we're taking them. And they just took them from the officials.
Oh.
Yep. They said, we want them.
And the officials just
Yep.
let them?
Yeah, I think that
strong-armed,
the Hatfields kind of outnumbered them. Yeah, I think they were like,
what are we going to do?
And again, in the South at that time, in the hills of the South at that time, you kind of just live and let live. The Hatfields kept the boys captive in West Virginia. They didn't want them to be on the Kentucky side of things. They wanted to have them.
But the killing, the stabbing of Ellison happened in Kentucky.
Yes.
Right, okay, gotcha.
That's where the polls happened.
Yeah, that's where the stabbing happened, and the Hatfields take him out of custody back into their West Virginia stronghold.
Yeah, there's a lot of like legal things happening there in today's world anyway, huh? Cross state lines, the
lynch
whole
mob
thing.
Justice to begin with.
Yeah,
and federal kidnapping is what Hatfield did.
They were holding the boys, waiting to see if Ellison, the brother, was going to pull through or not. He was struggling. He didn't die immediately.
All right.
He was struggling, and they wanted to see if Ellison lives, so will the boys. If Ellison dies, so will they. Ellison did eventually pass from his wounds. And Devil Anse Hatfield and his crew, they took the boys just over the river onto the Kentucky side, and they tied them up to pawpaw bushes. Every account I've read has specified pawpaw bushes.
I don't know what a pawpaw bush is.
I don't know why it matters so much, but I like saying pawpaw.
It's probably a tree of some sort. I don't know. Whatever. So they tie him up in the woods. They
tie him up to these pawpaw bushes, and they lined up their firing squad, and they executed all 3 boys. It's said that there were over 50 shots fired.
Damn.
They really went for it. At least they took them over to the Kentucky side so they could be with their family.
I guess.
I don't know. That's the only reasonable thing they did.
Don't mess with the devil.
After this, shit hit the fucking fan. The McCoys were done. They threw 20 indictments atop the heads of 20 Hatfields. They were like, all of you need to go. Charges, all of this, we're done with you. The McCoys had a lawyer on their side, Mr. Perry Cline.
Esquire.
Yes, he comes back into play. Now, he's also married into the family, in the McCoy family.
Okay.
He married Harmon McCoy's widow. Perry Cline had really great connections in politics and everything, and he was able to push these indictments through. Now, the Hatfields knew their land, and they knew the surrounding hills. They were able to avoid capture pretty easily. However, Perry Cline also had a personal vendetta against the Hatfields. Cline was involved in a lawsuit against Devil Anse a few years prior over the deed of thousands of acres of land and timber rights.
Oh. So
guess
Hatfield's livelihood.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming he won since he still has the timber industry that we know of.
Yep.
Okay.
Hatfield won, and the Perry Cline just can't get past that. I mean, that's a whole career. That's a whole life.
That's a whole,
Yeah.
That's a fortune.
Makes a lot of sense that Perry Cline would be like, hey, I'm done with him too. Devil Anse got tired real quick of being on the run and hiding. He was sick of it. So he wanted an end to this feud. He just wanted to be done. So he decided to have some of his men ambush Randall and his son Calvin.
Randy and Calvin.
Now, Devil Anse was not a part of this posse.
He's
too
the,
much. He's
the
kind
ringleader.
of the ringleader.
Yeah, he's the puppet master.
So when they went, they killed Randall's nephews by mistake.
Ooh,
yeah.
What? How many? 2 nephews?
2 nephews. And I'm not sure.
Like shot him? Lynched him? Okay.
Shot him. I'm not sure how that happened. All I know is they killed 2 nephews by mistake. And then days later, Cap Hatfield
That's one of the sons.
Yep, that's the second oldest son. And Tom Wallace, who I think is a friend of Cap, they broke into the house of Mary, who was the sister of a McCoy. They ended up beating Mary, flogging her, because they believed that Mary was telling Jeff, kind of being a spy a little bit, like giving him ideas of what the Hatfields are going to do. I don't know how Mary knew these things. I'm not too sure. But I think if you watch the miniseries, that's the story
they made it
give to Nancy.
They were some characters.
So I do think somehow, somewhere along the way, someone was a spy and telling the McCoys what the Hatfields are up to. And in this case, it's Mary, and unfortunately, she gets flogged by Cap and this Tom guy. So that...
Snitches get stitches.
Yeah, that was a pretty big deal. And when Jeff, the brother of Mary, found out, he went after Cap, and Tom was able to escape. Cap ended up shooting Jeff
on
the banks of the Tug River. Yes, killing him. So that raised the stakes even more. We have yet another death, another beating, another just thing. After the murder of his nephews, the McCoys stepped up their aggression quite a bit. They started using more of their political connections through Klein. Klein ended up pushing for bounties to be placed on the heads of the Hatfields.
Oh, you can just do that back then as a private citizen? That's weird. You could just be like, hey, I'll pay X amount if you kill or capture this guy.
Is he a private citizen if he's acting as their lawyer?
A citizen can't just, hey, I want you. I have a feud against that guy.
Well,
I'll pay my lawyer to offer a bounty. Like
he's got the ear of the political figures, though. He's got their ear, so he bent their ears.
All right, if they're okay,
they okayed it.
Oh, all right,
yeah, it was his connections, and he said, "I want bounties on their heads," and they said, "Okay." However that worked, I don't know.
Okay,
very strange, but the stakes got higher. Ooh. Now that the Hatfields have bounties on their heads, they are fighting for their lives. They're hiding, and it's said that Devil Anse didn't go anywhere without his shotgun for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Honestly, this makes sense. Their heads were on a swivel. Now, this leads us to 1888.
Okay.
Where Devil Anse and the Hatfield clan are so done hiding and running.
Yeah, they've been hiding in the hills for years now.
Yes. They just, again, want it to be done. Devil Anse and crew come up with this idea. They decide to ambush the McCoy household on New Year's Day in 1888. This is called the New Year's Day Massacre.
Ooh.
They ambush. A large group ends up creeping up to the McCoy home. Jim Vance and Cap Hatfield were the leaders of this posse.
Jim Vance, the one who started it all.
Yes, and he's still around doing shit. Randall McCoy ended up slipping out the back, thinking that if he was gone, they would leave the women and children alone.
How would they know he was gone if they didn't see him leave?
The women and children would let them know, hey, he's not here, it's only women and children. You know, you think you still have some of that old chivalry there, that Southern gentleman. Where's that Southern gentleman to be found?
Not here.
Yep, not between the McCoys and the Hatfields, that's for sure. So not the McCoys, the Hatfields end up opening fire on the house. Like you said, they don't even really wait to listen to anything. So it was kind of risky for Randall to be like, maybe they won't do it. I don't know. They're not listening. They're just firing right into this household, and they set the house on fire.
As is their wont to do.
Yep, that's how it is.
A bunch of Pinkertons.
Yeah, it does feel Pinkerton-ly.
Our subject isn't home, just blow up his family's house.
Yeah, F it, just go crazy. Randall's wife, Sally, she was severely beaten when she was trying to comfort her dying daughter. Now, her daughter, Alifair, was 29 years old at the time, but they all still lived together.
Okay.
She was shot in the crossfire when she was trying to flee the home.
And that's who Sally was
comforting when she was beaten.
Okay.
Then their son, Calvin, who was 26 years old, he was also shot and killed during the ambush.
So two kids are killed.
In the ambush.
Yeah, adults, but kids of McCoy's.
Yes.
Yeah.
Adult children.
Yeah.
Now, Sally survived the beating, but she was never the same. Her skull was completely crushed in.
Ooh.
It's amazing that she even survived this attack.
Okay.
After the New Year's Day massacre, 1 week later, on January 8th, Jim Vance was shot and killed by...
Goddamn time.
Bad Frank Phillips. This is a new player in this little feud here.
Bad Frank Phillips.
There was a shootout at Vance's home. Bad Frank Phillips went to Vance's home where he was wounded and then killed Jim Vance, not Bad Frank.
Yeah.
And I wanted just to put this in there. The miniseries showed the McCoys taking Jim Vance's body and like holding it up in his coffin, and Nancy was like drinking with it and doing photos. Yeah. That didn't happen.
Okay.
I looked into that, and I don't know, for any McCoys still out there, y'all didn't do that. I just don't. That's such a weird thing for the miniseries to put in. It's egregious.
For the era, historically, the idea that outlaws and famous figures would be that would happen
kind
a
of
lot.
On display.
Like that did happen a lot. With them being photographed, just not him specifically,
yeah,
but creative liberties to paint the era they were in, if not the actual literal circumstance. But
yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to put that in there. It did happen a lot, but it did not happen to Jim Vance. The McCoys did not do that. So now that Jim Vance is dead and we have Bad Frank Phillips coming into play here, I want to talk about that a little bit. So we're going to go a little bit further, January 19th now of 1888. We're just a few weeks after that New Year's Day massacre.
So blood still running hot.
Yeah, just a few weeks. Now, the Hatfields were planning yet another retaliation because of Jim Vance being killed. But Bad Frank and the McCoys were privy to this, and they ended up meeting the Hatfield posse at Grapevine Creek.
Grapevine Creek.
And now we have the Battle of Grapevine Creek.
For a second, Bad Frank Phillips, is he a McCoy by blood? Is he
who
is he a hired gunman?
Yeah, so Bad Frank Phillips was appointed by the Kentucky governor at the time, Governor Buckner. And he was appointed he was like a sheriff's deputy, and he got bolstered up to a special envoy to assist in the capture and arrest of the indicted Hatfields.
Oh, so
I think Klein had something to do with this.
So he's brought in specifically to do this task.
He's brought in to get the Hatfields.
Okay, so he's like a bounty hunter.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure Perry Klein was a part of this.
Yeah, they dressed his title up, but he's a bounty hunter.
Yep, he's a big-time bounty hunter. Yep. Once Bad Frank Phillips entered the mix, things did get a bit more violent. As we can see, he already started off hot with that Jim Vance. So Bad Frank, he led a group of McCoys and supporters to get the Hatfield, like McCoy supporters, to get the Hatfields. And the Battle of Grapevine Creek, like I said, occurred January 19th, and it's said to be really the last major skirmish between the families. A lot of people think that the New Year's Day massacre is the end of it, but this is really the end of it. There was the capture of 8 Hatfields during this. Bad Frank really was a bad man.
Do you know how many were killed? Were any killed, or is it all
None were killed, just captured.
Okay.
Now, they were charged, tried, and convicted in Pike County, Kentucky. And Bad Frank ended up marrying Nancy McCoy. She has a little redemption there for her family. Fuck it. If she has to choose, I think this is the guy to choose. For her. Not for me. I don't know. So.
He's a bad man.
Yeah. Bad Frank.
Yeah.
She did end up leaving Johnsy soon after they got married because he just kept running around on her. Yeah. So that's what happened there.
Johnsy.
Yeah. So Bad Frank and Nancy, they fell in love, and Bad Frank was a hero to the McCoys. They had one child together in 1895. Bad Frank, he died in a gunfight in 1898 at the age of 36. I feel like that's the way he'd want to go.
Only 36?
He was only 36, yeah. And then Nancy died of tuberculosis 3 years after Frank.
Who didn't?
And she was also 36, though, when she died.
That's like 75 back.
Well, I thought that was just interesting. They both, I don't know, weird. So now we're going to get into the trial of the 8 Hatfields that Bad Frank captured in Grapevine Creek. The 8 members of the Hatfield clan were hauled off to jail, and because of all of this feuding and this back and forth, the trial took a while to get ready. It took a year before there was a trial because they needed to wade through all these other things that were happening. So the trial began in 1889, and this actually went all the way up to the Supreme Court, which a lot of people don't really know. It's interesting because West Virginia sued for the release of the Hatfields.
Because they were captured in
Grapevine Creek. And I did not look up where Grapevine Creek is. All right, now we know Grapevine Creek is in West Virginia.
Yeah.
Damn. Thought I looked everything up. You
So
got
the
me.
McCoys captured the Hatfields in West Virginia and took
Yes.
them into Kentucky for their
Yes.
trial. Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
That's all right. So I can see the groundwork for why the Supreme Court would get in this. 'cause
That makes a lot
there's
more sense.
different
See,
states.
your legal brain is working. Mine just went, oh, okay. I accept that. I probably shouldn't accept everything, but I question enough. It's fine. The Supreme Court's decision was that it was fair to only put on trial the Hatfields that were already in custody. They basically were like, listen, y'all, be fucking done.
Mm-hmm.
Deal with these 8 that you have and just let it go. Let it go. We're all done with this shit. Just be done with it. After the trial, 7 of the Hatfields were sentenced to life in prison. And the final person was sentenced to death by hanging. And that last person, unfortunately, was Ellison Cottontop Hatfield.
Was he named after
His dad that got stabbed 26 times. Yes. And Cottontop, if you did watch the miniseries or are going to, he is depicted correctly.
Yeah, it's mentally challenged.
Slower.
Developmentally challenged.
Yes. He doesn't really understand what's going on. And this is the sad part of the feud. He
wouldn't be put to death today.
No.
Except in Texas. They execute people who are challenged all the time, every day.
Great. But yes, Ellison Cottontop, he was viewed as a scapegoat, as like a sacrificial lamb sort of thing. And he was hanged in Kentucky. Now, public executions were not legal at this time. However, thousands of people still showed up to the hanging of Ellison of Cottontop Hatfield. And he was hanged on February 18th, 1890. Reports claim that his final words were, "They made me do it. The Hatfields made me do it."
Yeah.
And that's probably the truth.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like he had the
wherewithal
capacity
or capacity
to orchestrate this. Clearly, he was just put a gun in his hand and put him in the right direction.
Now, I do believe he was the one that shot Alifair, like it was in the miniseries.
Okay,
I do believe he did shoot her, but he didn't know what he was doing or why he was doing it.
It's not the same culpability as the ones who organized the plan.
He was told to do it. And that ends all of the back and forth. Now, as the feud fades away, everyone just retreated. Randall McCoy became a ferry operator in 1914, and he died at the age of 88 from burns that he got in an accidental cooking fire.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he died.
Old Randy burned up.
Yeah. And
at age 88?
88. He burned to death.
That sucks to make it that old.
Yeah, I hate hearing about that.
Then you just get the worst death possible.
I hate that. You made it so far, and then, God.
Fire.
People say that he was haunted by the death of his children for the rest of his life.
Several of them were killed in the feud.
Yeah, 5 of them were killed during the feud. 3 were shot in those pawpaw bushes, and then Calvin and Alifair were shot in a massacre.
Yeah.
So then Sally McCoy, they're not exactly sure when she died, but they think 1889 or 1890.
Yeah.
After she survived the attack from her skull being crushed in, she was never the same. And we're pretty sure that she was sent to a mental hospital. Okay. And she most likely died there.
A sanitarium, as they were called then.
They were called back then, yes.
Bring it back.
Yeah, they ended up losing those 5 children. So now, Devil Ants, he, after everything, bought some land in a remote location, and he was always a little paranoid after that. He took special measures to avoid capture. He was always hunted for revenge, money. I think the law was still after him for certain things, but I don't think it was a big enough deal. I think it was more paranoia on his end, which
no one's like going for him anymore.
I don't really think so. Yeah. Interestingly enough, though, Devil Ants was baptized when he was older in 1911.
Hedging his bet, says death's nearing.
I think so, because when he was younger, he was once quoted as saying, "I belong to no church, unless you say I belong to the one great church of the world. If you like, you can say it is the devil's church I belong to."
Nice.
I know. And I was like, stick with it, Devil Ants.
He's probably old, know he's dying, and some business connection of, it's probably not true, but...
can't be too sure. Yeah, who knows?
Might as well buy stock in it, in case it's true.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
In 1921, Devil Ants Hatfield did die of pneumonia in his home, and he was 81 years old.
Wow.
After his death, his family made a marble statue that still stands today of him.
Where is it?
I don't know. It's somewhere in that area.
Okay.
Let's look it up.
Apparently, the statue is on Island Creek.
Oh, yeah, that's where his little remote location was. That's cute.
In Logan County, West Virginia.
Sometimes my brain just goes, I don't need to know that, and I stop.
His home place site is still able to be visited and everything. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Maybe we should do a little trip.
Yeah.
We'll see. There's some other things down there we can look at, too. Levice Hatfield, his wife, she also died of pneumonia, but she died in 1929 at the age of 86.
Oh.
And none of their children were actually killed during the feud.
None of theirs?
Not during the feud, yeah. None of their children. Jim Vance was killed.
Yeah.
Ellison Hatfield was murdered. Was the brother of Devil.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't...
Huh.
The Hatfields did more killing.
Yeah.
And they went for the jugular when they did it.
They were rich.
Yeah.
Richer.
Yeah.
I guess I don't want to say they're rich, but they were
But
better off.
tragedy still did strike a little after the feud. Two sons of the Hatfields, Troy and Elias, they were killed in 1911 by a drunk miner, like mining for coal or something.
Not a drunken
Like
child.
a 12-year-old running around like pew pew pew.
Well, a lot of people are killed by miners today.
That's funny.
Usually it's other miners.
Now, the oldest son, John C., he also died early in 1922 in his cabin, and that's all I could find. I don't know how he died. And he was a part of the New Year's Day massacre. He was supposed to do life in prison, but he only served 13 years. And then he was released. So I'm sure there was something.
Yeah.
But yeah, he died in 1922. So their mom did end up outliving 3 of her children still.
Oh.
So
When you have 13 or 16, it's bound to happen.
yeah, that's true. Now, fast forward to 2003. There was an honorary peace treaty signed between the descendants of the Hatfields and McCoys.
Ah,
Yeah, it was kind of cute.
that's cute.
It's cute. And this signified the official ending of the feud, and it serves as a reminder of how far both families have come.
Wouldn't it be funny if just something happened that sparked it up again? Like, I don't know, anything. Just anything modern.
Yeah.
Something new, some new cause. Doesn't it can be a temporary modern cause, but
Just
just
be real
happened
silly.
to be between those two families. That'd be amazing. The sequel.
Now we have all the facts, the stories
Yeah.
anyway, the legends, and what we do know is the feud started in 1865 with the killing of Harmon,
Or
in
1878 with the theft of a hog.
the hog, or maybe it's due to economic strife. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's all the things meshed into one. The country was changing.
They didn't like each other.
Yeah, they just didn't like each other. And later on in life, like years and years later with genetic testing, we also discovered that the McCoys have a genetic disorder
That
could have helped with this.
What's it do?
It's called von Hippel-Lindau disease.
Okay.
And this causes a tumor-like mass to sit on their adrenal glands. And the adrenal glands produce adrenaline when you need it. But when there's a tumor-like mass sitting on it, you're always having adrenaline pumping through
So
you.
you're kind of
heightened,
more apt to be
and
emotional responses are going to be more severe.
absolutely. And so when something does happen and your adrenal glands release more adrenaline, they are like pumped up with it. They're going all the way. So some people are theorizing that that was a factor as well, that the McCoys just couldn't fucking let go. I don't know.
Yeah.
All
but
the
then
factors.
what is
The
the excuse? The
Hatfields did more
Hatfields.
killing,
They
though.
did more killing.
That's how I viewed it too.
If anything,
So,
it's a family killing a bunch of people who have problems.
yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, who really knows what happened? It was most likely the perfect storm of all of these factors with some internal personal issues, all of it. Also, if you've been listening this whole time, the phrase "the real McCoy" has nothing to do with the McCoy family. Just so everyone knows, there's no real McCoy.
The history of that phrase independently, and no one really knows.
There's two theories.
There's like we can't state definitively.
One of them is that some person named McCoy that's not in this feud or anything, he invented something and he patented it, and people that want it say, "I want the real McCoy," whatever.
Yeah.
The other
that
one
thing
is
was.
there's a Scottish whiskey called McCoy.
Ah.
And back in the day, it was an older whiskey, and people were asking for the real McCoy during Prohibition time. And then it just turned into the real McCoy. Either way, it doesn't have anything to do with this family, and it was hurting my brain not knowing that, so I just thought I'd let you guys know that too. It's always pretty
Appreciative.
good. Yeah.
Appreciated.
Now, a little fun thing, if you want, is you can go down to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, if you want to see the Hatfield and McCoy dinner feud.
Medieval times or something like
Yeah,
that?
yep. So they will do like a little song and dance and a show, and it's comedic, I think, from what I saw on the website. And you get to have dinner and everything. So if you're ever in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, check it out. It looks a lot of fun.
Pigeon Forge or Fork?
Did I say fork? Pigeon Forge.
No, you said Forge. I was just making sure I was hearing it right.
It is Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. Yes.
Yeah,
it is.
I'm not questioning you.
I looked into it quite a bit because I want to go.
All right.
We're going to go one day. And if you've already been, please let us know, because they have cool things that are called like Feud and fried chicken and pulled to pieces pork barbecue. It sounds hilarious and great. And again, that's Hatfield and McCoy dinner feud. If you do go to it and you want to tell me about it, you can email me at borrowedbonespodcast@gmail.com.
Yes.
I'd really like to hear about it. And if you have any ideas, we're just getting started with this. So
send some
suggestions.
Fucked up family lores.
Cults, family dynamics, all of it. I'd really like that. I will have all of my sources in the show notes. I hope everyone enjoys them. If you like research, and as much as I do.
Yeah.
Have a good day, everyone.
Thanks
we don't have
for
a
listening.
sign-off yet.
We're working on it.
Yeah. I'm just going to say goodbye.